So what blocks the signal? If we know this, what's blocking the signal? Well, what's blocking the signal is trauma, emotional shocks, inherited tendencies, survival patterns, fear-based religion, family wounds, collective cultural grief. All of these create a white noise that interferes with that signal. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our second Sunday in Advent. And today's lesson is focused on the three wise men and their journey. In fact, this whole series is going to be kind of about the three wise men and their journey, the journey that leads us to the birth of the Christ within. So we're going to be looking at that. And as you saw today, we lit the candle of peace. In some traditions, this peace, move that down a bit. In some, we got a new microphone. We're still getting used to it. That's what John and I were doing up there. He wasn't just hugging me. He was adjusting my mic. But it's also, in some traditions, the candle for hope. So we're going to be talking about that today. Our whole purpose of life, and that we are reminded of in the Christmas season, is that we are all on a journey that leads us to our highest good, towards healing, and toward unfolding or birthing that Christ's presence within each of us. And in that process, we discover that there's an inner guidance that leads us. So Advent then becomes the season that invites us to pause, to breathe, to listen, and to reorient our hearts. It's the spiritual version of looking up at the night sky and seeing a bright star and realizing, oh, that's where I am meant to go. I am meant to follow the light. It's the recognition that something within us already knows the way. And as we continue weaving in the threads of our recent Healing the DNA series, we'll be exploring our inner guidance system and how our DNA in all levels affects that. Our personal DNA, our spiritual DNA, our tribal DNA, and of course, our national DNA. All of that is encoded with us, including the spiritual truth, including the knowing that we are on a journey, that we are being divinely led. And so today's lesson is inspired by the story of the three wise men who navigated across the desert and trusted the guidance of the light of a star. And while there's no evidence really that this story is true, and there's many, many different versions of it, it's important nonetheless. It's important because whether they were literally guided by a physical star in the sky, or whether they were astrologers who saw it in a reading, or whether it never happened at all, it serves as a metaphor for their awareness of that inner guidance and their trust in it. We can know the same truth. We can know that our soul already holds a map for us. But the question then becomes, are we listening? Are we listening to that inner guidance? The idea of this inner guidance is central to all of our unity teachings, and I would say central to all of the world's traditions. Charles Fillmore said, the indwelling Christ is the quickening power that illumines the way. That illumines the way. Eric Butterworth wrote, guidance is not something we receive from outside of ourselves. It is a flow that comes through us. And Myrtle Fillmore said, there is no absence of God's guidance, only our absence of the willingness to listen. So in truth, we can never be lost, but we can forget that we have this within us. And this is where our healing work enters. This is where our Healing the DNA work enters. When we talk about healing the DNA, we're not talking about healing DNA in the clinical sense. We're talking about the codes and the patterns that shape our consciousness, that influence our reactions, that inform our assumptions, and give us our sense of direction. Old family patterns can cloud the map. Trauma can distort the compass. Cultural messages can give us the wrong coordinates. And regional narratives, like the one that I just heard not too long ago, well, New Mexico is a poor state, keeps us in a poverty consciousness, when in truth, we are abundantly blessed in all ways. And beneath all of those layers is something that is unchanging, that is eternal, and that is radiant. That's the original divine blueprint that you have, that I have, that every living being has within us. And this Advent experience allows us and inspires us to rediscover that. So let's ground this in the Christmas story of the wise men. It's found in Matthew chapter 2. The Magi, or the wise ones, saw a star rising in the east. I guess east is that way. Saw a star rising in the east. In the scripture it says, "We observed his star at the rising, and we have come to pay him homage." Now there's three things about this that stand out. Number one, the wise men noticed the star. Everyone else saw the same sky, but the wise men noticed it. And they recognized that something special was unfolding. This is the first step in charting our spiritual course. Coming into awareness, the willingness to pay attention to that inner whisper that says, go, do, be, that nudges us, being aware of synchronicities, signs that lead us on the way. The next thing I notice about this that stands out is the wise men trusted the message. They didn't have a map. They didn't know the destination. They simply trusted the light. This is faith. It's not blind faith, but inner certainty. Ever have anybody ever say to you, well, you just got to have faith? Well, there's more to it than that. That's kind of almost a cop-out. You got to have that inner certainty that as how weird as the destination looks, as the journey looks, or maybe the destination is even unknown, you are being called to go on that journey of discovery, that journey of unfolding, that journey of finding your Christ light. And then they moved their feet. That's our fifth principle, action. They moved their feet. They didn't just sit there and say, oh, look at that star. I wonder where it's going. They got up and they moved their feet. A star can only guide a willing traveler. And the wise ones acted with that insight. And this is where many of us get stuck. We feel the star. We see the star. We feel that calling to go out on this journey. We feel the pull. But our old DNA patterns rise up. They say things to us like, well, who do you think you are? You've tried this and failed before. This won't work in this economy. People like you don't get to have that kind of life. Or with finances, we're too poor. Our state is too poor. Our church is too poor. These are inherited codes, inherited stories. They're outdated. But they are the cellular memories we carry. And so the importance of this is that with this Christmas experience, this mass of the Christ that we are calling forth within us, we are reminded that we have a star to follow, each and every one of us. And the star is stronger than any story. When we talk about spiritual DNA, we're talking about something beautiful and profound and simple. It is that divine spark within each one of us that is the architect of wisdom, of love, of clarity, and of guidance. It's been present since before you were born. In fact, since before you were even imagined. In Unity, we call this the indwelling Christ, or the Christ consciousness. For so many years in traditional religion, Christ has been some guy that lived 2,000 years ago. That was Jesus. He probably wasn't born on December 25th either. But he embodied the Christ. He modeled the Christ. He showed us. He became aware of the Christ, and he took action, and he showed us what was possible. All those times he said, follow me, do as I do. He was saying, look, it works. And you have it too. The holy spark does not show up in you if you're good enough, only if you're spiritual enough, or only if you have prayed long enough. It's there because it's who you are at your core. Unity author Stella Terrell Mann wrote, "The Christ in you is the light that reveals your path, illuminating each and every step." That's the divine compass. It's always calibrated, always steady, always guiding us in the right direction. And when we have DNA that tells us the things that aren't true, we also have DNA that tells us what is true. Our spiritual DNA knows when to turn, when to let go, when to risk, when to rest, when to speak, when to wait, and when to leap. It's that deep inner knowing that nudges you. Have you ever had a nudge? and you've said, no, that's insane. And have you ever done it anyway? And how has that worked out? I know my biggest blessings have always occurred when I trusted the nudge, when I trusted that inner guidance. It leads us into conversations we don't expect where we gain insight or enlightenment. It pulls us away from something that looks shiny but isn't aligned with us. Or it whispers, be patient, when everything within us says, let's go, let's jump forward, let's do this. Unity minister Russell Kemp said this, spiritual intuition is the divine pattern pressing to express itself through you. When you trust it, you are guided in ways the intellect could never devise. Miracles happen. Isn't that exactly how it feels when guidance comes from someplace deeper than thought? When you hear that nudge and when you follow it? It is said that the Christ Spirit within you is a steady light, never dimmed and never silent. Even when the outer world feels like chaos, and let's be honest, it feels pretty chaotic now, doesn't it? Am I right? All right, just wanted to make sure. I thought it was me, maybe. Even when the outer world feels chaotic, our spiritual DNA does not panic. It doesn't forget. It doesn't lose the thread. It quietly holds the pattern of truth that you really are. And it knows that right here, right now, there is timeless meaning and guidance available. That's why I don't really worry too much about what's going on right now. I know it's all going to work out. Like Armand and Angelina say, everything's going to be all right in the end, and if it's not all right, it's not the end. So all of this has meaning for us. Christmas is not just a story of a baby's birth thousands of years ago. It's the story of the awakening of the Christ light within you. The entire nativity narrative is a metaphysical map of how divine wisdom breaks through old patterns and births something new within us. Imelda Shanklin wrote this, "To know God is to know yourself as more than flesh and habit. The divine identity in you is seeking fuller expression every moment. Even right now, that divine identity that you are is seeking to express to a greater degree." That's the movement of Christmas consciousness, that mass of the Christ, that divine identity that is seeking room to be born in us this day. It is said that divine ideas are the blueprint of our destiny. And isn't that the language of the DNA? The DNA is our blueprint. It's our pattern. It's our design. It's our spiritual genome. It's the already encoded possibilities within us. It's the presence of harmony and purpose. So when angels appear in the story or a star appears in the sky, that's a divine idea arising. When Mary says yes, that's the soul consenting to a higher vision. When Joseph listens to his dreams, that's intuition, leading us over logic. And when the star appears in the sky, That's illumination. And when the birth happens in the manger, that's the reminder that the holiest thing can emerge from the simplest, messiest places in our own lives. The Christ light in you is seeking to love and shine more fully than it has. That's spiritual DNA in motion. That's the divine compass ready to gently pull us to a higher place, a higher expression. I love what James Dillett Freeman wrote. You are not alone. An inner presence is with you, guiding you with a wisdom deeper than thought and a love stronger than fear. That presence is the very pattern of Christ expressing through you. So Christmas then becomes an invitation to let the light that has always been in you become the light you consciously follow, to let the spiritual DNA that has always been encoded in you to become the guidance you trust, to let the Christ that has always been your essence become the compass that leads you onward. Because that light has never been outside of you. It has only and always been within you, waiting for you to be aware of it. It's kind of like a divine GPS. How many of you use GPSs in your cars? A GPS needs a signal. That's intuition. By the way, a GPS stands for God's positioning system. Thank you. I knew it. It's a signal. And clear weather, that's emotional coherence. Updated maps, that's spiritual growth. And the destination, that's the Christ within. And all of that requires a driver. And the driver is you. God can only do for you what God can do through you. So what blocks the signal? If we know this, what's blocking the signal? Well, what's blocking the signal is trauma, emotional shocks, inherited tendencies, survival patterns, fear-based religion, family wounds, collective cultural grief. All of these create a white noise that interferes with that signal. But here's the good news. These patterns are not permanent. They can be rewritten. That's what we've been focusing on the last month, rewriting those patterns. Science is bringing this out as well with epigenetics, which shows that emotional patterns can be healed and transformed. Neuroplasticity proves that the brain is capable of rewiring itself based on repeated thoughts and feelings. That's why we do affirmations. We are literally rewiring our brain. Heart math, it demonstrates that heart-centered coherence increases intuition, clarity, and guidance. And finally, for you scientists out there, quantum theory suggests that consciousness influences the field of possibility. I love it when somebody says to me, Gordon, that's impossible. Oh yeah? Watch. The very word impossible, possible within. It may not be possible out there, but it's possible within. And everything starts within. So you are not stuck with the map history gave you. You can choose a new direction. You can follow a new star. So how do we do it? How do we do that? How do we set out on this metaphysical journey represented by the wise men? Well, here's 4 steps that we can take. First, pause. Take time each day to stop. We're coming into a very busy time of year. But take time every day to stop. You cannot receive divine guidance if you're in constant motion and chatter. Butterworth said, in the silence, God's voice is heard. Even if it's only for 30 seconds, take a moment and stop and just be. And then perceive. Ask. Ask yourself, what am I feeling draw towards? What feels like light? What feels heavy? What old pattern is trying to repeat? And when an old pattern is trying to repeat, that's spirit saying, oh, look at this. Let's heal it. is calling you to do the work. These are moments of clarity where you get clear on what is yours to do to begin to move forward. And then the next step is prepare. Release something that has been clouding the compass, maybe a belief, maybe a resentment, maybe an inherited family story, maybe a church story, maybe a fear. Let it go. The wise ones prepared themselves by letting go of what was familiar. When they set out on that journey, first of all, they had an issue. If you've ever read the story, it says the star is rising in the east, but there's a song that says they're following it to the west. I've never quite figured out how they did that. So they had a challenge right from the start. But they also set forth on a journey where they didn't necessarily know where they were going. They didn't know what they would have to deal with. Nobody talks about their travel through the desert. They let go of what was familiar, what was safe, what was comfortable, and they set out on the journey. And finally then, once you perceive and prepare, proceed. Take one small step that aligns with that light. Just one. That's all the star asks. You don't have to know every step. You only have to know the first step, and then the next first step, and then the next first step. So we just lit a candle for peace. In some traditions, it's the candle of hope. They go together quite well. Hope is not passive. Hope is not wishful thinking. Hope is not waiting around for some cosmic Amazon delivery of a miracle. Hope is a spiritual directive. And it means, I believe there is a path forward even when I cannot see it. And when we come into that consciousness of hope, that true awareness of what hope is, we experience peace. Oh yeah, there may be lots going on around us. We may be involved in a lot, but we can be at peace when we believe there's a path forward, even if we cannot see it. Hope fuels that inner guidance system. Hope gives us the courage to trust the inner star. And hope reminds us that no matter how long the night, the light is already rising within us. So let's take that idea into a time of meditation. I invite you to get comfortable, put your feet flat on the floor. Take a breath. Take a slow breath in and a long breath out. Again, breathe in and breathe out. Allow your shoulders to drop. Allow your body to receive support from the chair, from the floor, from Mother Earth herself. And allow the presence of Spirit to support you. As we remember that peace is not something we chase. Peace is what we tune into. Like a station that is already broadcasting, we simply turn the dial of attention inward so that right now we breathe into the truth. Hope is here. Peace is here. Hope is now. Peace is now. Hope is within, and I am at peace. And as you rest in that, bring your awareness to a gentle idea. There is a divine design within you, a spiritual DNA, a blueprint of wisdom, of love, clarity, and guidance. This is not something you have to earn, not something you have to prove, simply something you recognize. This is the indwelling Christ consciousness. the light of God within your awareness. Now breathe deeper and allow yourself to become one with that Christ consciousness, one with God mind, one with the universe. And imagine, in the center of your chest, there is a compass made of light. Not a harsh and rigid one, but one that is gentle, clear, and trustworthy. It points to your true north. And your true north is always the same: wholeness, love, integrity, peace. Allow yourself to sense it as warmth, as light, as stillness. And know that the compass already knows when to turn, when to let go, when to risk, when to rest, when to speak, when to wait, and when to leap. Accept it. Let it become part of you. As you say, I don't have to force this. I don't have to argue with it. I simply listen. And I ask, Spirit, what do you want me to know? What do you want me to know? As I wait in peaceful silence. And now I see my life as a journey, like I'm traveling forward into the days ahead. No pressure, no detailed planning. For I trust Spirit. I trust Spirit like the wise men trusted the star. I have a sense of path. And above that path, a guiding light. Like a steady flame that leads me on. And in this place of peace, I realize that that light is not outside of me. It is within. It is the birth of the Christ light in my own awareness. And so I consent. I consent to let it shine quietly, confidently. and I hear a voice that says, I am here. I have always been here. Let me lead. And now, just for a moment, I hold this truth. That Christmas is the story of the divine light entering into my awareness. A holy idea being born in the ordinary places of my life. And in those places where my life feels messy or unready or unfinished, I don't have to push those away. I simply say, even here, the light is born. Even here, peace arises. And now, from this sacred place of stillness, offer a sacred yes. Not a perfection yes, but a present moment yes. Silently repeat to yourself, I consent to the guidance of Spirit. I consent to the guidance of Spirit. I consent to the peace of God within me. I consent to the peace of God within me. I consent to the Christ light being born in my awareness. And now, become aware of any shifts that happen when you stop striving and start receiving. And now ask, what is my next true step? I don't need the whole map, just the next true step. It may come as a feeling, a word, an image, a calm certainty, or simply a deeper peace. Whatever you receive is enough. And if you receive nothing specific, receive this. You are still guided. You are still held. The compass is still working. Now, as we begin to gently and slowly become aware of our presence in this room, silently repeat after me. The peace of God is established in me. The Christ light within shines clearly. I trust the divine compass of my heart. I know when to act, and I know when to wait. For I am guided in wisdom, strengthened by love, and anchored in peace. And now, gently bring your awareness back to this room. Feel the support of the chair beneath you again. Take a slow breath in and a long breath out. Wiggle your fingers and toes, and when you are ready, open your eyes. And as we bring this service to a close, we remember that the light is not trying to get to us from far away. It's rising from within, and it knows the way and the why. So as we go forth and move deeper into this Advent season, I invite you to remember that you are guided, you are directed, you are held, and your spiritual DNA contains the map. For the star you seek is already rising within you and charting a new course for you this Christmas season. One not based on old wounds, but on awakened wisdom. Not based on inherited patterns, but on divine possibility. So let us follow that path and that light together as we move into this season. Thank you and Merry Christmas.